Hello there, and we're going to go over brushes today. This is the second video in my video series. This is really just going over the Unreal basics. The first video is titled Unreal Basics, so you should go watch that one first so you can just see how to navigate about Unreal, etc. Today we're going to focus on brushes, how to build with them, how they work, why you want to use them, why you don't want to use them, when to convert to static mesh, etc. So this is the same level I used in the first video. As you can see, we have my scaled up odd static mesh here. We have a brush, which I manipulated the points in the last video, and it's untextured. So I'm going to delete this brush, and we're going to just go over the basics to start. So here's our BSP tab, which is the brush tab, and we have a variety of objects to select from. They're all quite obvious. So we're just going to start with a box. You simply drag and drop it into your world, and right away hit F to zoom in. We see that it's covered in nicely looking checkerboards, which means it has no material on it. So what we don't want to do is build anything without a material. It is a lot more trouble later to apply new materials as you build out your level and you're trying to replace them all at the same time and in mass amounts. It just creates a lot of trouble. So from the beginning, let's have a material on our brush. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go into my material folder, which is, it's right on it already, so let's close it up. So let's also close this up so you remember that if you don't see anything here and it's isolated to one folder like this, you can use this to back out and then go to the content and you see all the content folders. Or you can click this to see the side panel and you get the whole rollout of all your folders in the content folder. So that's a good thing to remember. So we're going to go into starter content, find our materials, and again, I don't want to use things I need to UV with. I'm not interested in level design using UVs. And you think, oh, it's okay, I want to put bricks on my walls and I want to put this cool glowing alien type texture and I want to put some oak wood on this and that. So the pitfalls of using materials is you need to be an artist to make them look good. Even though they're there and ready for you to use, it's a lot of work to match them together and make them look good. So let's not do that. Stick with wall, floor, and platform. So I'm going to have my I'm going to have my floor selected. This is a material. When I drag and drop my box in, it's now going to be completely, it now has the material and basic floor applied to it. So that is a quick and easy way to always have your brushes ready and covered with the material. Saves you a lot of time later. So this is my brush, and I can do things with it just like any other static mesh, etc. I can move it about, I can hit E and rotate it, I can scale it by hitting R and changing its shape and size. So the big difference between a static mesh and a brush is this brush is completely customizable, and there is right here under the brush settings we can see it says additive. So there are two types of brushes. There's an additive brush and there's a subtractive brush. This is currently additive, so we see a box which I've scaled. So what I'm going to do here is, let's see, what should we do? Let's replace this static mesh with this brush box shape and make a wall out of it. And then we'll make a doorway or a tunnel through it. So we scale it up. It's like you could do with your static mesh. And the reason you use brushes is it's really easy and powerful to prototype something, get a level block out in. Does not mean you want to build your whole level in this. you do at some point want to start converting your brushes to static mesh, which I'll show after. So it's about this. Let's make it a little bit higher. And I'm going to create a tunnel in there. So I'll make it nice and thick. Is there a gap there? Is that a shadow? That's a shadow. Yep, it's a shadow. Alright, so there's my additive brush. Just like scaling any object. Next, I'm going to select a cylinder. And with this cylinder in my details here, I can see its location, rotation, scale. What I want to do is change this to have more sides, so it's a much smoother round cylinder. So let's put it to 32 sides. As you can see, it changes that. I am now going to make it subtractive. And when I make it subtractive, you can see it no longer draws the sides. And it changes the point colors to this pinkish salmon color. Going to rotate it into place. And as you notice, right now there's nothing happening on this surface because it is a static mesh. The brush will not interact with the static mesh like it does another brush. So, and I just lost my brush. So as you can see here, I can't see it in the shaded mode. If I turn to wireframe, ta-da! There's my subtractive brush. So that's a good thing to note, because you may do that and be like, whoa, where'd it go? So if it's subtractive, it's not going to show up in shaded mode or lit mode. So now if I push it into the wall, aha, it's starting to make an indentation. And if I scale it on this axis, I'm starting to make a tunnel. So I can adjust this, make it a tunnel more like this. And if I don't want my floor to drop through and be all curvy like a fun house, I could add another floor piece to it, or I could just scale my static mesh here. Be a little bit longer. Yes, I'm being messy on this whole building process. I'm just demoing how this all works, try and get you guys to understand it. So now let's go on our level. Let's go to my play button, and I'm just going to play it in the viewport. Let's run over to my wall. Ta-da! We have a subtractive brush inside an additive brush. So you can see the power of this and how we could block out something very quickly. There's even hit escape to get out of my play. There's even stairs you can build, spheres. So you can see how you can combine a series of brushes and make something very powerful. So one thing you don't want to do, you'll see some people demo this in tutorials. They'll take a box, they'll put it here, they'll make it really large, and I'm going to just go to the scale settings here, and let's make it 20 by 20 by 20, and for some reason that went off 20. So I made this huge, well, that's too big. It's okay. This is for demo purposes only. I'm going to put it in here, and now someone could make a room by simply copying and pasting. Copy, paste. We now have another box, and instead of it being 20, I'll scaling it by 20 on all the axes. Let's scale it by 19, 19, 19, 19, which is hard to see how much bigger it is in here. But when we do this and we change it from additive to subtractive, what we just did was make a giant room with 4 walls. So this is a wonderful little exercise to do if you're going to experiment with something really quick and not leave it in your level for a length of time. Why is that? Because you see how it works. Just made a giant room by having an additive box, copy pasting it, and then making it slightly smaller and making it subtractive. This works really well if you're going to do something really quick and then get rid of it. But what we don't want to do is leave this here, because what starts to happen is we start having, I'm going to zoom out, if we have all of our gameplay in here and we have a whole bunch of brushes in here, right now they're static meshes, but if this was all brushes, some are additive, some are subtractive, and yet you have these two overlapping them all, it can start to cause problems. So how this works, I'm going to delete these two. Delete. And oops, I'm going to go to wireframe and make sure I delete this guy, the subtractive brush. So what I don't want to have happen is have as many brushes overlapping. I want to have as few as brushes possible overlapping as I can. So when I'm constructing this wall right here and I'm going to make a tunnel, it's great to have one wall, one brush, subtractive brush going through it. Now within this, if I had details in here, I wanted to create something like, let's say, a concrete support. I could take a cylinder, bring this over, make the sides 32 again. We're going to keep it additive. We're going to rotate it in place. And something I can do to make a quick support, or to make like a pipe, a simple tunnel. An easy way to do this is make it hollow. You turn it hollow, and then you can change the inner radius and outer radius. So right now it's a very thin, let's say, concrete pipe. I can make it a little thicker by making this less. Now we have a thicker concrete pipe. I place this inside my tunnel. So this is supposed to be just like a concrete support. I'm going to make it about that wide. I'm going to place it inside the tunnel. See if I can get this positioned easy enough. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to say that's good for now. There's my concrete support inside it. So now we have a subtractive brush overlapping an additive brush inside an additive brush. So now we have three brushes overlapping. So why is this one only subtracting from this brush and not this one? So how these work are, the last brush created is the highest on the basic hierarchy. So the last brush created has the greatest influence. So if this is additive and it was the last one created, this will not subtract from it. If this subtractive brush was created after this wall, and after I placed this inside it, and then I put this in here, this would subtract from this as well. So last brush created has the highest hierarchy, and the simplest way to fix this is, if you look here, there's two ways. If you look down here, you see order options, to first to last. If you change this, it's going to change the order it's in. Is it the first brush created or the last brush created? So you can do that, or I like to do is, let's say I want a new brush. If I copy and paste, now you can see that I have another subtractive brush in here that just completely subtracted my concrete support. Now if I want two in here, which I don't know why I would, but let's get rid of the first. And it's still subtracting from this, and it now destroyed my concrete pillar. So what I want to do is grab this one, copy and paste it. Now I have a new one, so I'm going to delete the old one. And the new one, since it was copied and pasted, it was now moved to the top of the hierarchy. It is now the last created and at the top of the hierarchy. So this subtractive brush is not going to subtract from it. So So when I go over my level building on how to do scale and match the using a concept image, how to build a level, going over concept images, I'll go over this again because it can get a little complicated, but that's a quick summary. So you want to avoid having a ton of brushes overlapping. So another cool thing to do is you can combine brushes together to make an interesting object. So let's do this. I'm going to make an interesting pillar here, something with a little more detail. I take this box out, my basic shape. Again, my material is selected, so it's already put a texture on there for me, which is great. So I'm going to make this box, since it's a pillar, will be a slightly different gray. And it's good to stick with gray textures. I'm going to make this half as big. Gray textures, so we just rely on lighting. Like I said, let's avoid green grass and bricks and wood and all these different things. You need an artistic eye to make that to make your level look good using that. And I don't want to get into that in level design. So my pillar, scale up. So let's give this is my basic pillar. I'm going to give it a base. So I'm going to copy paste, and I'm going to make it much smaller on the Z, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger here on the X and Y. So now if we zoom in, oops, wrong direction. It's like it has like a base to it. It's like the base of a pillar. I like the start of that. And now I'm going to continue. I'm going to copy and paste again. Another additive brush using the same one. Come up here. I'm going to use my tool to eyeball it. Put this here. Put this here, right about the middle. Now what I'm going to do is create an angle here. So I'm going to go into my geometry editing. If you remember from the first tutorial, that allows us to select our points. And again, we don't want to do very complex shapes with these brushes. Simple edits are good. So I'm going to make this have a curved surface here. I think it can go farther back. It's trying to look pretty good. Stick with that. Zoom that in a little bit. I think I need to make it a little bit thinner. Whoa, it's too thin. Copy, paste, rotate. As you can see, my rotate is set to 40 to 45 degree increments. And copy, paste. Rotate this 180 degrees. Position it as such. And let's do one more. Copy, paste. Rotate it 90 degrees. And last but not least, I'm going to duplicate this, copy, paste, move this up to the top, hit F to zoom in, use my scale tool, quick flex in with this. That's good. Oops. There we go. Trying to get to my move tool. Then we have another little support and collar on top, which I'm going to make a little bit thinner, so it's not the same thickness as our base here. Just like the variety, and then we're going to put one on top. Copy, paste. which will be our top support, which will connect with the ceiling. Now I need to scale these out appropriately. Which is looking a little bit too big. 0.8. Oops. 0.9. 0.9. And the thickness will be 0.8. Whoa. 0.09. There we go. 0.08. 0.07. Looks better. Not so giant. Alright, let's get in there and play in our level a little bit. Alright, got a pillar here. It's kind of a Greekish, abstract something pillar. So the great part about things like this, adding details to the base, all these little geometric details, is it works with the lighting. So having everything flat without any angle changes, details like this, you don't get the lighting to really accent your level and make it look great. So even by adding this collar here in your tunnel, it adds an enormous amount of detail. Instead of having this long, endless tunnel with just, oh, it's round and that's about it, you add a couple collars here that are like structural support, maybe add a spigot of like a water hose that comes out. Just by adding a few tiny details, suddenly you have an interesting tunnel area instead of a, oh, long, endless, gray, flat nothing. So another trick is right now we have hit escape, get out of our play. Another thing you have to, if we pay attention here, go back to all our brushes. We have a whole bunch of brushes stacked up. So right now this is going to be cumbersome to move around and duplicate. So what I can do is grab, by holding Control and left clicking, I can just manually run around and select each brush. That is the entire column or pillar, whatever you want to call it. Now by hitting Control G, I group them together. So now they are grouped together. Move them, they all move as one unit. So this is great. Awesome, quick little detailed pillar, structural pillar to put in my world. So these can freestand in our room. If we make our walls much harder to match. Match this piece here. Scale this up to match this piece here. And again, we're going to be messy, just to give you bigger concepts, understand how to build. Scale up, move it up. So let's copy and paste one of these, rotate it. Looks like it'll cover big enough to use as a ceiling. Scale it out, move it into position, scale out a little more. Play. Ta-da! Now we're in a room. We have our tunnel, we have a pillar piece, but alas, our pillar does not touch the ceiling. It would be so much cooler if it touched the ceiling. Let us lower our ceiling. And using the WASD is great in Unreal. It's so easy to maneuver. As you can see, it just touched our pillar. Play. Nice. Looks like we have some structural support in here. Alright, let's decorate our room with a bunch of pillars. So in this room we have, let's say we have a row, copy paste, and again it copies it as a group. And this is going to get messy in a second. Copy paste. So now as you can see on my right in the world outliner, I'm duplicating a lot of brushes, which is really going to start hogging my computer frame rate and resources soon. Put this one partially in the wall. Space this one out a little bit better. Start to make it look a little more architecturally sound. Put him in the wall. More. Space these guys out. Alright, quick building. I should use my top-down mode and get an evenly placed architecture, but I'm just showing quick building techniques. Back to play. And hey, it's starting to look like a room with some details and architecture to it. Just by creating this one pillar piece, tunnel, little structural detail, you can see how much more is going on, and instead of just a blank wall. So the other trick now is, I like how these look, I like how they're working. I'm quite confident I'm going to leave these here. So what I'm going to do is go down here in details, and under I have my group of brushes selected, which is a pillar. And like I said, great for prototyping, but at some point you got to replace them. So I'm going to replace them with a static mesh. So how I do that is create static mesh. Look at that button. Click that. What it brings up is your content folder, and you want to find a spot to put this in. So, oh, I don't like it putting it back in starter content. It gets lost. Geometry is a good one. Meshes. So I'm going to put it in there and call it my pillar. And for some reason, I'll just call it pillar. Pillar. Create static mesh. And the great thing about it is it replaces all these brushes with your static mesh. In days long gone, the predecessor to Unreal was UDK, Unreal Development Kit. And when you did something like this, it would delete all the brushes and it would put your mesh in your folder, and you would have to pull it back out and put it in your scene and replace it again. But now you've got it all in the same spot. So now what you want to do is copy paste and basically place them in the same spot as this, and delete these. Yes. This one. What I should do now is save. So let's go back to the basics. The basics of level building and game development. Lots of saves and lots of save ases. Save as. Third person example now. Is that what I still have mine saved as? Well. Bad move. So, oops, not letting me create a folder. Can I create a folder? New folder. Tutorial. We're just going to call it tutorial. Put everything in there. So the tutorial folder, we're going to call this map tutorial 01. Alright. Save regularly. Yes to all. Will you have files that go corrupt, crash, and lose everything you've done the last day or week? Yes, you will. Apps are positively guaranteed. And does that make you a crummy student or a crummy game designer? No. It happens to everybody. So please do lots of save as. Please back up your entire project. Do not overwrite and delete all your old projects. Save them over and over again and have multiple versions of your project, because you will get a corrupt project and lose everything. It's what happens in game development to everybody, including the greatest game developers in the world. We are always redoing work, always fixing. corrupt files, corrupt objects, strange hiccups in the engine or level that you don't understand. Alright, now we've got, ta-da, all my static meshes. They all have textures on them. Beautiful little objects that are clean, concise, quick to build. What else can we show? That may be the basics with brushes. You could probably go over the rest. So you just want to remember, too many overlapping brushes is bad. You want to keep things simple, thick. Thick meaning, if I have a wall, I want to have it one wall and have a couple objects cutting through it, forming staircases, windows, things of that nature. You don't want to have brush, 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 and 20, 30, 40 of them all overlapping. This room is built up of 4 walls, a floor, a ceiling. None of them are overlapping and causing problems. They're all independent of each other. These were all overlapping at one point, but now they've been turned into static meshes once you're comfortable with that's exactly what you want. Staircases are great to use as brushes because they're so flexible and easy to tune. You drag them in and you can set up the number of stairs, the height, the length. You can adjust everything. It's great. Alright, well I hope that helps the starting point, and I'm going to go over more of this when we get into building a level from a concept image. I'll cover this stuff more again. Alright, hope that helps the starting point, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.